Today I'm going to show you how purchasing teams can benefit from SiteMind to identify actionable insights from their data within minutes. Let's put ourselves into the shoes of the purchasing manager of an EV charging stations manufacturing company. On the left-hand side, you can see what data we have available. In this case, I have uploaded the data through an Excel file. However, this data could be coming from an SAP system or any other ERP system as well. So one thing that we can see right here is the part master data, which is actually showing all the different components or parts that we're sourcing. So you can see, for example, a charging controller unit, a high voltage relay. You can also see cable harnesses and so on. And you can also see that for some of those parts, we are actually sourcing them from a couple of different suppliers and maybe even for a different price. Other than that, we also have purchased orders available, goods receipts, returns, and reclamations, as well as some inventory data. The power from SiteMind is now to be able to query this data and get some business insights from that data without even having to specify how all of these different data pieces are connected with each other. So let's try this actually out now and try to get some business insights using our natural language. High level, let's try to find out those suppliers which are the most unreliable ones, and let's try to see whether for especially those parts which are particularly have particularly high returns or reclamations, whether for those ones we can actually find another supplier who's also supplying those ones and is maybe a more reliable one. Alright, so to start our analysis, we will now at first need to identify which ones are actually the most unreliable suppliers. And for this, let's ask the following question. So I'm interested in the top 5 most unreliable suppliers, and I'm also specifying right here that I'm particularly interested in the return and reclamation ratio, because I know that this data is available. I'm also interested in knowing the PVO, because this will help me prioritizing which suppliers I actually want to focus on. Right. So I can already see at first glance that it is actually taking a look at a couple of different data sets and combining them. So I can see that it is looking into the purchase orders. I can see as well that it's looking into the reclamations and the returns, which is pretty much what I would expect. I can also see the results. So I can see very clearly that Megaparts EU has the highest return ratio compared to the other ones, and there's also quite a gap from this one to the other suppliers. And I can also see that the reclamation ratio is particularly high for Megaparts EU. Alright, so I want to understand this now a bit better and try to see whether there are actually some specific parts that Megaparts is supplying to us, which are in particularly have a high return ratio. So let's dwell a bit deeper. So I'm asking now which parts from Megaparts EU have the highest return ratio. Perfect. It is now coming here with the answer. I can see again that it connected my part master data with the returns data, and I can see now a list of parts and their respective total return quantity. I can see that indeed this specific part has been returned the most. So I want to understand now a bit better, so especially because I can see very high return quantities appearing right here. I'm now interested in understanding a bit better whether maybe there's even alternative supplier who's more reliable and could provide those specific parts to us as well. So let's now reference our previous insight. So for all parts from, and now we're going to reference it, parts with the highest return ratios from Megaparts EU. Are there any other suppliers offering the same parts for a cheaper price with a better return ratio, and maybe, this would be, I guess, the best case, maybe even a better price. Let's take a look. Alright, so it seems that it's combining again as expected the returns and the part master data, and I can now look into each of those parts that we know already from our previous question. So part 6, for example, EV6. I can now see this part right here. I can see the mega part price. I can also see some competitor prices right here. And I can see the mega part return quantity as well as the competitor return quantities. Same for all the other parts. If I'm now looking into the first one right here, I can see that we're paying a higher price than the other ones, and at the same time we have a higher return quantity than the other ones. So with this, we know now that for some of those parts from Megaparts EU, we should look a bit deeper and try to see whether we can actually get these ones from a competitor, because this would allow us to get them for a cheaper price, as well as improve our return quantity. So you can see that it only took us a few minutes to figure out a better way of doing our sourcing, or at least a point of entry for optimizing our sourcing. We now went into that specific direction of trying to make our sourcing pipeline more reliable, but you can imagine asking all other business insights questions as well.